Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the continuing series, Know Your City, sponsored and created and done by the League of Women Voters of Waltham. We began this last year in the middle of the pandemic in an effort to highlight many of the different boards and commissions that the city has. Just speaking to Sarah a little bit earlier, I was surprised one day when I got onto the city website and I saw there were almost 50 different organizations that keep our city of Waltham running. So at that point, we reached out to the different institutions and committees and said, will you tell us what you do? And I am just so delighted to have Sarah Hankins with us this evening. Sarah's a neighbor. She is a former candidate for city council, and she's a graduate of the University of Connecticut. She's lived here in Waltham since 2004 and is owner of SM Hankins Consulting, which is a small business specializing in software consulting. She's a board member of the Downtown Waltham Partnership and the proud mother of a 10-year-old boy and an 8-year-old girl who are absolutely deliciously cute. That's my editorial comment. That's not what Sarah said. So Sarah, you have been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for how long?
About 6 years.
That's a long time. That's a long time. So what does the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, ZBA, actually do? What's your primary function?
We have 4 functions, really. I'll kind of talk about them, I guess, from least interesting, I'll say, to most interesting. I'll say least controversial, most. The first is special permits. City Council does some special permits. We do some. It depends on how the ordinances are written of which one of us does it. The special permits that we do are usually pretty, it's like if there's, you can build 10% more onto your building if, it's X number of feet from here, blah, blah, blah. So it's all kind of dimensional. And the second one is variances. And that is where the ordinances might call for a 20-foot setback from your neighbor's yard, and you want to put it, let's say 18 feet away. These are tough because there's a lot of requirements that need to be met in order to get the variance. There's a heavy burden on the petitioner to prove that they have a hardship, that it's not going to negatively affect the neighborhood, and some other criteria. The third thing is another interesting set of things we deal with, which is appeals of the building inspector. So the building inspector has a lot of power to he can kind of shut down a business if he doesn't think they're sort of like operating in the right zone, or however, and any decision that he makes can be appealed to us. So a lot of times that'll be as simple as, he says a homeowner needs certain things to get a building permit to do an addition, and the homeowner doesn't agree, and they just appeal the decision to us. The last one is since I've been on the board, there have been at least 3 or 4 of them, or maybe 3 of them, is 40Bs, which if people are not familiar with that is a special rule. The 40B is a regulation on the state level, and it allows developers to bypass local zoning, and when they're building a residential complex, as long as they set aside 25% of those units for moderate or low income people. And the only authority they have to go through in the city is the zoning board. And those, a lot of big projects go through the city council, so they are very much an exception that they're a big project, but they don't go through the city council. And we often have city councilors that come and speak on those projects because they don't have a hand in them at all. So they sort of come and kind of lend their expertise a lot of times because they've dealt with a lot more of these types of projects than we have. So yeah, those are the four. Basically every case we deal with, everything is kind of like a case. It's almost a little different than other boards, almost like a judiciary board. So, Tuesday night we had 3 cases, everything's a case, and all of those cases, I believe, fall under those 4 categories. I can't think of anything else.
Okay, so just to clarify, you've been to my house. I've got a parking space for 2 cars outside. I don't have a garage. If I wanted to build a garage, what I would plan to do would be to go to the building department and find out what the particular zoning rules are for where I live. And the zoning maps are available online. And I guess the zoning code is the Bible for what you do. It actually determines when people want something other than what it says they can get by right in the zoning code. Am I correct?
Yes.
So if the building department said, hey, you need a setback of 25 feet. Actually, I think it's 30 feet, but I'm not sure. But let's just say 25 feet. And my husband says, no, I don't want to set it back that far because it's going to eat into the garden and I want it closer to the road. I could come to you and ask for a variance. Is that correct?
Correct. That would fall under the variance. Yes.
Okay. And what is the difference between a variance and a special permit?
Really, the big thing is the burden of proof, so to speak. To get a variance is a real heavy burden of proof. A special permit, there really is no burden of proof. It's 2 different state regulations that sort of dictate those 2 items. So a special permit is, like any other permit that we have the authority to grant it, and we don't really have sort of these limitations on it. Variance, because you're asking to break the rules, so to speak. There's a real heavy burden of proof that hey, I really need this to happen. Very often, I can't speak for your future edition, but a lot of times it isn't just to save the tomatoes or whatever. But
okay, well, okay, we'll leave it at that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember sitting at city council meetings where they've issued a special permit, but there are conditions that go along with the special permit. I will let you do this, but you have to do that. Am I correct in remembering that? Does that happen?
Yes, and that's actually true of all of 3 out of 4 of these. The appeals of the building inspector, obviously you're sort of like yay or nay. I mean, I guess you can say yay a little bit, nay a little bit. But as far as special permits, variances, and the 40Bs, conditions can be put on all 3. Absolutely.
And who monitors if the conditions are being met?
It's the authority is the building department.
Okay. We have a question from Karen, but I'm going to hold off on that because I think we will be answering it as we go along. But tell me about the makeup of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I noticed there are full members and associate members. What does that mean?
Sure. There's full members, which it's actually, I think it's kind of similar to the Supreme Court, actually. It's kind of like a similar judiciary body where, the full members are more of the supposed to be kind of the, senior members. And same here and it's 5 and 5. So you have the 5 sort of senior members and then 5 junior members, including myself. We only have 3 right now. So right now there's 5 permanent, but only 3 associate, which works out well for me as an associate. I've been able to sit on every single case for the last 3 or 4 years because now it's actually recent that we've had just that low, but because so many people either have a conflict or illness or whatever, I'm able to pretty much be on every case, even though I'm an associate.
So it sounds like associate, if you had a full complement of members, associates wouldn't be on every case. Is there a number that must be 9? Must there be 9 people or what?
It's 5.
5.
So for every case, you need 5 because, and just I'll circle back, but to get a variance, you actually need in the 40B, and yeah, all 4 actually, I believe. Special permit, maybe not, don't quote me on it. You need 4 out of 5 votes. So you really need everybody. You can't the meeting's always 5 people, and you can't have less than 5 people, because then the person essentially needs like all 4 people to say yeah. That's kind of a tough spot for the person to be in. So the associates, yeah, are kind of like substitutes, because we can't, other meetings, obviously city council is 15 of them, people absent, that's fine, but we can't like go on without having 5 people there.
So then, if I understand correctly, if I come before the ZPA, there are always 5 people there.
There'll always be 5 people there. There are occasionally times where somebody will last minute be sick, and somebody, to kind of save the expense, if they really feel like it's something straightforward and they're going to get like they will go ahead with 4 members, but people have a right to 5, and almost all the time people will exercise that right and just wait till there's 5.
Okay, now, how does one get appointed to the ZBA?
The mayor appoints and the city council confirms. And I believe at least what I did was fill out sort of an application at City Hall and at the mayor's office. And I think I prioritized that. There's a whole list of boards, like you said, probably 50 that you could be on. And I think I had, said that I wanted to be on zoning, but I think that's the process for a lot of the boards, and that's it for ours.
Okay. Are you paid? Do you get a salary or a check or a stipend?
Yes, it's $100 for a meeting, and I don't know, I can't speak for if the chair receives more money or whatever, but that's what us regular members receive.
Okay, that's good. I feel better that you're getting paid for your work, because I know it's work. Okay, what type of training do you get? And the reason, I mean, this is not a loaded question, because I was on a small committee looking at the zoning rules a few years ago, and it's not easy. It's complicated.
Correct. Yes. The only sort of formal training we're like bound to, and this is the same of all public officials, is the open meeting law. There's sort of like training and some testing around that you're kind of bound to. Otherwise, there is a lot of opportunities run by these Annette would know a lot better about these organizations being involved in housing, but there are a lot of nonprofits or maybe kind of quasi-governmental organizations that do seminars for like 40B especially. I've probably gone to about a half dozen of those, but then also covering all different zoning things, and we're made aware of them. Nothing is mandatory, but there's definitely opportunities to learn about things at a state level. As far as the zoning on a local level, like, no, because I mean, there wouldn't be anybody to, that'd be very specific to Waltham zoning. You know what I mean?
Okay. A question from Karen. Is it the responsibility of the ZBA to interpret the laws that apply to each case that comes before them, and how is that accomplished?
Yes, in a way, like especially on sort of a special permit, you do have to, sometimes you have to interpret of like, words have a lot of different meanings. So, there are certain times where it's like, oh, is that of the floor area, or is that, but a lot of times our judgment is on the decision of the building inspector. Everything starts at the building inspector. So in Annette's example, she would go to the building inspector with a set of plans. He would reject the set of plans, and that would what eventually would lead to the zoning board. But you would never just come to us directly. It's always sort of through the building inspector. So he's sort of, on almost all of these situations, he's the one, except the 40Bs, that kind of is saying, well, this is my interpretation of things, and so it's not really on us to really interpret that the law too much.
Okay. Well, in real life, I work in real estate, and I'm going to give an editorial comment right here. Whenever in doubt, I just call the building department in any municipality. They're the ones who have the zoning rules in front of them at all time. And I will say that I have always met a very helpful person on the other end of the line who is more than willing, whether it's on the phone or in person, to check and see that what I was asked, give me the answer to my question, and then just show me the rules in the book. So it needn't be intimidating to ask the question and find out the information. And you just answered my next question. How does a person know if what they're planning to do is allowed under Waltham zoning rules? And here's where I begin to feel like a parent. When somebody says, I want to do this to my house, I'm just going to do it. Sometimes you want to check with the parent figure down at the board and not make an assumption that whatever you want to do is okay. In my world, it has to do with extra apartment, turning the basement into an extra apartment or something like this, which frequently is not a legitimate use there. But when in doubt, just go and ask, and people are extremely helpful. I think you've answered the next question, the difference between an appeal, a variance, and a special permit. Okay, let's just say I wanted to file for a variance for my garage. And how do I go about that process? What documents do I need to get together, or how do I get my request in front of you?
So, like I said, very first step, building department, they reject the plans and they say, they put right on the plans and they'll say this violates section 3.2, and they'll say sometimes it violates one section, sometimes 2, 3, whatever. And that's sort of the basis for then, your appeal. You're going and then saying, well, he says this can't be 25 feet and, I want 18. For once you reach that stage, you then get this application packet, and what you have to submit for every case is plans. So, certified, professional plans, not cheap, of course. The application itself, which is, I just perused it today because I really looked at it, but sort of basic information, nothing, just administrative information. A legal notice. So I don't know if you've read any of the legal notices from the zoning board, but it sort of just gives a brief. It's a one-page thing. It tells the name of the property, who owns the property, when the hearing is going to be, and also just briefly what they're looking for is a variance, special request, and sometimes a little bit of detail, which sometimes is a lot of detail depending on who puts it together. Mailing labels, you have to mail out to everybody that lives within 300 feet or who owns property within 300 feet. And so you're responsible for that as sort of the petitioner. Tax status, you have to prove that you're in good standing with the city, otherwise you're not eligible for anything. And proof of standing, that you actually have some sort of custody over the property to be actually, making a request.
Let's go back to the legal notice. Does the petitioner have to file that someplace? We no longer have a newspaper. Tell me more about that.
I apologize. I forgot I skipped right over that. It used to be that you had to post it in the Tribune. It is now that you have to post it on the Boston Globe.
So you pay to have a notice put.
You have to pay whatever that fee is. The Globe, they probably don't have. It's probably not that big a fee, I would imagine, because you're way in the back. Those legal notices.
Whatever. And are these notices published anywhere in the city? Are they posted any place in the city, or is it just in the Globe?
They're posted at I believe we're at City Hall, where they kind of post all those notices. Additionally, at the government building on School Street where we have our meetings, they post it. Otherwise, it's posted on the website, the city website, and I don't know if anywhere else that it's publicly made known.
Is there a fee?
Yes, the fees. I had no idea what the fees were, so I called Pam Doucette, who's the zoning board legal administrative assistant, and she's just amazing. She does a lot of great stuff. She sent me in the right direction. So fees for variances: residential $100, commercial $500. For a sign, to get, often you need a variance to get a sign, $250. Appeals of the building inspector, $250. Special permits, residential $200, $500 for commercial. The 40Bs, the fee is anywhere from $3,000 to $15,000, depending on the size of the project.
Okay, another question from Karen. Are there difficulties involved with disagreeing or ruling against the building inspector?
I mean, I always, look twice out my window, like, what's he gonna come bust me for? I don't know. It's tough, I mean, of course, I mean, this is who knows what he knows what he's doing. It's sort of, he's the expert, so to speak, on things. Sometimes he comes and he's agnostic on it. He says, I felt like I had to, violate them on this, but you guys do what you got to do. Sometimes it's a little bit more of, he's a little more passionate about it. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's definitely the most sort of like controversial, part of the job.
Let's talk briefly about 40B, and I didn't send you any question ahead of time about this. Was my layperson's understanding that they could pretty much do whatever they wanted to because they don't have to follow zoning rules? What would cause you to deny an application for a 40B?
Right before I got on the board, the board denied one because they believed at the time that we met the 40B obligation. So that's a reason that you can deny it, is that you think, well, the calculation hasn't been updated, and I think we've met our. You can they can do whatever they want, pretty much, yes, but you can turn it down on, on the face of things, of saying, this is just going to when anything that happens with us gets appealed to land court. So really what you want to know is, what does land court have to say about it? What they balance is community, the interest of the community, or the school's overwhelmed, this or that, with the need for affordable housing. Well, they very heavily consider the need for affordable housing. So that's what we are asked as a board, is to say, for every issue that comes up, is this overwhelming to the schools? Is this, too dense? Is it going to bring too many cars? Is there not enough amenities nearby? Is that more or less important than the need for affordable housing? So, it's like a lot of things in law where it's just all right there in the gray area.
Another question, can we describe what 40B is? And it's essentially an effort by the state to create more affordable housing. I think you described it very well earlier.
It was some I believe in the 70s or so. It was years ago. It was passed, and yes, it was an effort to it's sort of an anti-snobbery legislation, which is basically saying, communities, if at least 10% of your housing is not affordable, then people have a right that sets off this right to create housing, and you can bypass laws. It's an emergency, so you can bypass local zoning to do it. So that's basically, it was a state level effort, and every community is has to hit this 10%. And you'd be really shocked at some of the communities that have hit the 10%, well, at least hit their 10%. Just communities you wouldn't think of as historically friendly to affordable housing, but they have a planning department, this and that is figured out to fulfill that 10% without being subject to a developer coming in and doing whatever they want.
Again, this is one of my hot buttons, and we will probably have another meeting on affordable housing at some time in the future, but thank you for explaining that. Question: if I come in with a proposal for my 2-car garage, do you negotiate? You say, we'll give you this if you do that. Is that a possibility?
Yes, it happens all the time. A lot of times what happens is neighbors come and they complain and it's too much this, and you kind of want to like split the baby. I mean, we're not elected officials up there, but we're just trying to like kind of make everyone happy, and we want everybody to kind of leave, feeling like that the neighborhood's a better place. So, yeah.
Okay, so in other words, I don't just give you the application, it's yay or nay. You take a look at it and you try to see what is best for everybody in the neighborhood, even assuming you have to push a limit here or there.
Yeah, and we can very much, like, it's within our rights if variance, okay, they want 18 feet, we can just carte blanche say, well, you're allowed 20 feet, and you or 15,
Okay.
whatever, and you do what you can with that. We definitely have like that sort of, but obviously when people are doing designs of plans, it's a lot more, it's not, when you're talking about those dimensional things, sometimes it's like they're looking for a variance for 2 sides of the house. So you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe the middle ground here is, that you get that one variance, not the other. So a lot of times that stuff happens. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Are the meetings televised or recorded? Can we watch you?
They're all
I know we can come in and see you.
Come on down anytime. Yes, they're all recorded and they're all on WCAC. They usually play them, I want to say, what are we, Tuesday night? So they usually play them Wednesday, sometimes the latest on Thursday, that you can just watch it sort of live on WCAC. Otherwise, once Wednesday or Thursday hits, they're available to watch on demand.
That's good to know. What have I forgotten to ask you? What would surprise me or make me say to know that?
We touched on it a little bit, but I just wanted to, because as you may have recalled from years ago when I ran for city council, I'm all about transparency. So yeah. I wanted to let people know we meet usually every Tuesday. We're not bound to that though. Sometimes depending on deadlines and things like that, we will meet other nights, but we're also bound to the open meeting laws that it's always posted, 2 days ahead of time, and so on and so forth. 7 o'clock at the government center. Meetings generally, depending on what's on the agenda, kind of run anywhere from half an hour to up to, I didn't get home till almost 10 last on Tuesday. So, and then how do people know about meetings? Like I said, the Globe and the postings.
Okay, and the question, WCAC or MAC TV? Do you know? Is it on the municipal channel or the general? You don't know?
I'm sorry, I don't know, because I always go right to that WCAC website. So I guess it would make sense that it would actually be on MAC. Yes, I thank you for that correction on that. That is, yeah, they probably air it on the MAC TV. Yes.
Okay, I'll ask the audience, do you have any more questions? I had one that came in my head and it went out, but people know how to get a hold of us. So if we have any questions, they just show up on Tuesday, is it?
Yeah, Tuesday, 7 o'clock.
Okay. Well, did I forget to ask you anything? I'm going to ask you once again. Nope. Or did we?
No, that's all I had as far as, information that I was hoping to, let people know about the board.
Well, it sounds like a simple, relatively simple explanation of the very complicated work that you do. Okay, and I don't want to diminish that at all because, okay, here's another question.
Okay.
What's the most challenging or interesting experience that you've had?
Couple things. The 40Bs are, I would just say in general, are very interesting because, like I said, we're the only board that they go in front of. So you have all of this information about engineering and all of this stuff that we're sort of supposed to factor in that we ordinarily don't. So you get a peek at these projects and you really get to like know, a lot about these projects, a lot more than other projects. Another just an interesting story I always kind of tell is one of my first experiences on the board was a very popular business in town had been shut down by the building inspector, and the business owners came to the meeting. They were appealing it right away, and they were very angry. And it was like one of my first cases, and they were just not angry at us, of course, but just very emotional. And I was like, it was really kind of like thrown into the fire. It was fun and interesting, and I think it all worked out. I can say that now because even them, I think, would be say that, but it was definitely interesting first sort of experience on the board.
Okay, got a couple more questions here. For those who bring 40B cases, what are they looking to accomplish? Why do they even come to you? Is it because they don't meet the zoning requirements that they need a blessing from the ZBA?
That's what the rules are by the state. The rules are that you can bypass all of the local zoning and all of that, but they give the zoning board the authority to ultimately approve the project. And I think it's sort of like a little stopgap that, otherwise what would then stop somebody from building, 80-foot tower, so, something really ridiculous. And I believe, and this is just going to these 40B seminars, that they have the zoning board do it instead of the city council, because then it would become a political football.
Well,
because it's affordable housing, it's this and that. So us as a non-elected board, we're just kind of looking at it without thinking about, kind of political implications.
Well, I've been to, of course, many city council meetings, and the 40Bs are generally presented there as well to give a heads up, and it can be a circus. It can be a circus there. Another question. I think I saw that the ZBA met at noon one day this week for a balloon test, and I was curious what that was.
The balloon test was actually postponed till to be determined because of weather. There's pending right now in front of us a 40B on Main Street on the Weston line, in what's I would call the Kendall Green kind of neighborhood. And the balloon test is they kind of literally put balloons up so that we can have us and whoever wants to go, because it's a public meeting, actually has a visual of how tall that building will be. So
cool.
it is going to be rescheduled.
That's cool. I hadn't heard of
Yeah,
that.
I was surprised. The first balloon test I went to, the high school, we did a balloon test. And I was surprised. I'm like, oh, it's actual balloons. Like, I don't know why I didn't expect it to be actual balloons, but it was kind of funny.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions now. Sarah,
Thank you
this
so
has
much.
been so delightful, first of all, to spend time with you. And I can't help but to know that everybody has a much better understanding of what the Zoning Board of Appeals does. If there are any other questions that come up, I'll forward them to you and let everybody know. Thank you so much. And
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed my time.
Wait a
Thank you.
second. Somebody said, oh, thank you so much, Sarah. I got a comment. It's not a question. So
thank you, Karen.
The program was recorded and it will be available probably by the beginning of next week up on the website. Everybody,
All right, I'll
thank
take
you
a look for it.
and have a good night. Bye-bye now.